All right, let's get right into it. Today we're exploring this really powerful idea that comes out of Jungian psychology. It's all about the path to becoming the person you could be. And no, it's not some magic formula. It's about learning to hear a call that's already there.
So just think for a second about the things that really truly grab your attention. You know, the stuff you can just get lost in for hours? What if those aren't just random hobbies or distractions? What if they're actually a map, a kind of biological guidance system, pointing you exactly where you need to go to grow the most?
Now, the big word for this journey is circumambulation. I know it sounds super academic, but the idea is actually pretty simple. Picture yourself circling a mountain to get to the top. You're not going in a straight line, right? With every loop, you get a little closer. You see it from a new angle, and you learn more about the mountain and, well, yourself. It's a spiral, not a straight shot.
So where does a journey like this even begin? Well, it starts with what the old myths would call the call to adventure. But for us, that call doesn't come from some mysterious wizard. It comes from inside, from that little tug you feel, that pull of a genuine interest.
And this isn't just some fairy tale idea. It's actually got roots in biology. The theory goes that we are basically hardwired to be interested in the very things that will help us grow and become more capable. It's not magic, it's a built-in mechanism. Your fascination? That's your compass.
Okay, so you feel the pull of an interest, but answering that call? That's not so easy. In fact, that very first step is often the absolute hardest part because it forces you to do something pretty terrifying. You have to be a beginner. You have to be willing to walk the path of the fool.
And here it is. This is the question that just paralyzes so many of us. You get a little glimmer of an idea, an interest, and right behind it comes the doubt. Is this a stupid idea? Am I wasting my time? And well, the honest answer is, yeah, it probably is. At least a little bit. Most of our first ideas are flawed or incomplete or just plain wrong.
And this is so crucial to understand. The probability that your very first attempt is going to be perfect is zero. Absolutely zero. So waiting around for the perfect plan to just appear, it's completely pointless. Because you don't even have the experience yet to know what perfect would even look like.
And this is the relationship we have to get. Look at the master. They weren't just born a master, right? No, they were once a fool. A fool who was willing to stumble forward, to be wrong again and again, and get refined by all those errors. See, the fool starts now. The master? They have an expertise that was earned through that whole messy, foolish process.
Just let that one sink in for a second. If you are not willing to be a fool, you can never become a master. The willingness to look clumsy, to look incompetent, to make mistakes, that is the absolute, non-negotiable price of admission for developing any real skill in your life.
So you've embraced the role of the fool. You start moving. And that's when you enter the next phase, wandering through the desert. This is what it feels like. That messy, error-filled, am I even going the right way part of the journey? And in this desert, you learn one of the most powerful truths there is. It is so much better to do something badly than to not do it at all. Think about the big heroic figures in ancient stories, like in Genesis. They weren't perfect. They stumbled, they made terrible mistakes, they failed, but they kept moving forward. And that was everything.
And here's why just moving is so critical. When you start, you're aiming at some goal off in the distance. But as you walk towards it, you change. Your perspective changes. You get a little smarter, a little sharper. And so the goal itself, it kind of shifts. It gets clearer. You weren't wrong to start. You were just overshooting the target, which is actually a necessary part of zeroing in.
See, every single time you overshoot or make a mistake, you're not failing. You're collecting data. You are constantly learning what not to do. And if you learn enough things you shouldn't be doing, you start to corner the truth. Eventually, that becomes the same as learning what you should be doing. It's just course correction through trial and error.
You know, the story of Exodus is actually a perfect psychological map for this. Step 1, you escape tyranny. You leave behind your old, broken, unhelpful beliefs. Awesome, but you don't magically arrive in the promised land. Nope, you enter the desert, where you feel lost, maybe a little hopeless, and that's a critical stage. It's only after all that wandering that you can finally build something new and find a better direction.
So this messy process of making mistakes and wandering in the desert, it's not a permanent state. Over time, all that stumbling around leads to a really powerful transformation. It's a process of zeroing in on who you're meant to be. Think about learning any new skill, playing an instrument, starting a business, anything. At first, your rate of error is super high, right? You're overshooting all over the place. But as you practice, your mistakes get smaller. They get less frequent. Eventually, you move from that high rate of error towards mastery and real precision.
You want to know the most beautiful analogy for this whole thing? It's a child learning to speak. It is the perfect model of moving from this huge, unfocused potential to a sharp-mastered skill. When a baby is just babbling, they can actually make every single sound used in every human language on Earth. It's incredible. Their potential is totally wide open, but it's completely unrefined. And that's you at the start of your journey, full of possibility, but without any precision.
But what happens? As that child learns their own language, they start to zero in. They stop making the sounds that aren't needed, and they get perfect at the ones that are. Their massive potential gets focused into a specific, powerful skill. They've gone from full to master. That's the transformation that happens when you just stick with the journey.
So after all that, what does this actually mean for you, like right now? What's the big takeaway from this whole journey of whatchamacallit?
This is honestly the best news you could possibly hear. You do not need a perfect plan. You don't need to have it all figured out. You just need to pick an ideal, an interest that's worth pursuing, and start moving toward it. Even if you do it badly, imperfectly, foolishly, it doesn't matter. The movement itself is the engine of your growth.
So let's just boil it down. First, trust your interests. They're your guide. Follow them. Second, get this in your head. Mistakes are not the obstacle. Mistakes are the path. Third, always choose to act badly instead of not acting at all. And finally, remember that real progress is a messy, winding, circling journey. It is not a straight line.
So that potential future version of you, it's calling right now. It's speaking to you through the things that spark your interest. The adventure is here. And the only question left, the one only you can answer, is are you willing to be the fool to begin?